my recollection was it started about World War II, and what they were doing was they were knitting bandages for people that were coming home from the war, and I don't believe it went back as far as World War I. I'm pretty sure it was World War II, but they were hand knitting bandages. And when the war was over, they decided they wanted to they liked the community spirit that they had gathered, and they wanted to keep something going on. And it was, as a war effort thing, it was mostly women that were doing the knitting. And at first it was only women that could be on the board, and it wasn't until like the 50s that they decided they would allow men to be members, and later still that they were able to be on the board. But at a time when there was a lot of male fraternal organizations, this was an interesting thing the other direction. And they had a very extensive history already written up, and I was able to condense from that for their sign. They're in a weigh house. There was a coal, there was a factory for the Kelly Manufacturing Company, and it had a railroad spur. And so with the railroad spur, they were able to bring in coal and then dump it. And so I'm trying to remember now if it was Oaks or if it was somebody else. The Oaks brothers, who took over after their father Nicholas passed away, they made bricks, but they also sold ice and delivered coal. And they continued to deliver coal and sell ice after the brickworks went out of, they decided to stop operation. It was in too close to town by the time town had grown out to it. So by the time they built Longfellow School, between 1915 and 1917, it took a while because of the war. But by that point, the brickworks had stopped operating. But there was a large coal pile out by this factory, and the Craft Guild house was the weigh house for the coal. So they would take a truck in and weigh it on the scale, and the scale's still there in front of the building. The working mechanisms are gone, but and then they drive in, load the truck up, weigh it on the way back out. And yeah. So that was a house that sort of just time forgot, and it was able to be purchased for many years. Della Grizzle was a neighborhood person of quite significance. If we'd only been able to find a house of hers in our area of interest, we would have marked it, but she lived outside the area. But she was one of the founding members of the Rundell Women's Club. And the Rundell Women's Club, a lot of the same people or their daughters were involved with the Craft Guild. But the Craft Guild is still there. They make pottery, they do weaving and spinning and knitting, and some enamel work I think is kind of tapering off. The number of people doing the enamel work. At one point they made big enamels, and they had a lot of wooden forms for making metal shapes. So they would make bowls and dishes and stuff, and they continued for many years, I believe, to hold fundraisers for local hospitals. And a lot of that's gone now, but they are one of the local, leading organizations for fiber arts, and they have pottery.